Good morning, everybody. My name is Shweta Sharan. Welcome to another Facebook Live session hosted by the Samhita Academy. In today's session, we will be talking about the commerce stream. We will be talking about the various degrees, diplomas, professional courses, and the many careers that a commerce student can consider. So let me introduce you to our speakers. Our first speaker is Ms. Ramya Pingale, who is a career guidance counselor with Lodestar. Ramya has many years of experience in finance and accounting, and she has been with Lodestar for 3 years now. Apart from her work with Lodestar, she also helps an independent firm, gives financial and technical advice to startups. So it's great to have you here with us, Ramya.
I'm happy to be here too. Thanks for inviting me.
And our next speaker is Ms. K.S. Jyoti, who is the Vice Principal of the Samhita Academy. Ms. Jyoti has been an educator for more than 17 years. She's a passionate teacher and teacher trainer, and she's much loved by all the students at the Samhita Academy. Ma'am, it's great to have you here with us.
Thank you so much, Shweta. I really want to take this opportunity to express this great pride that we carry in the fact that, we are part of this platform that is going to disseminate very important information and insights into commerce as a stream. So thanks for hosting this.
Absolutely. And this is a Facebook Live session. So please do post your questions and your comments and anything that you would like to ask us. As soon as the session is over, we will be answering as many questions as we can. For questions we are not able to take, we will reply later. So, Ramya, I would like to start by asking you, if I am an 11th grade student and I have taken up commerce, so what are the broad careers that I can opt for as a commerce student?
The broad career paths that a commerce student can take are finance, accounting, audit, support services like banks and insurance companies, and there are also degrees in law, company secretaryship, cost and management accounting, and of course the biggest course of all, IAS, administrative services.
Right. And can you give us a little bit more information about these various courses you just mentioned, these specializations?
So let me just give a small difference between finance and accounting. Let's say you got a bonus of 50,000 or a lakh at work, right? Now you have to kind of decide what you're going to do with the money. Are you going to pay off your housing loan? Are you going to buy a new computer or a home theater? What is it that you're looking at, right? So businesses have to make the same decisions. What to do with money, where to invest. The idea is to invest in a place where the return on investment is the highest, right? So finance people, they end up making these kind of decisions. What to do with the money. Now, once the money is being spent, it also needs to be tracked. So the accountants are the people who are doing the role of tracking, right? Now, chartered accountant typically is the person doing this. And the chartered accountant is also the person who comes in and verifies whether the maintenance of accounts is proper and done properly, right? So apart from this, there is company secretaryship, cost and management accounting. Company secretaryship has more of a focus on law and compliance with different provisions of law. Cost and management accounting is more about resource management, be it labor or overheads, those kind of things. Law and IAS, I think everybody knows about it.
Right, yeah. So broadly, you have finance, accounting, and you have auditing, which are the broad
yes,
right? And I would like to ask, what are the courses that students would have to do to get into these careers?
Yeah, so there are two approaches to it. You can actually do an undergraduate degree, a 3-year undergraduate degree in BCom or BBA or BA economics, courses like that, and then go on to do the professional courses. So there is also an option to pursue these courses after your 12th standard, right? CA, CMA, CS especially have a foundation module that kids can actually pursue after their 12th. So this would be one option available for the kids. The other option that require entrance exams are law, right? Law is a course that you take the entrance exam for after your 12th standard. So you get an integrated BA LLB or a BCom LLB degree, right? Then the other courses are postgraduate, MBA and administrative services exams are all after your graduation.
Right, right. And so after a student finishes commerce, so what are the degrees and diplomas? I mean, if you can categorize them as that, what are the degrees and diplomas that they can actually think of?
Yeah, so it would be these degrees that I actually mentioned, right? You can look at BCom, you can look at BA Economics if that is your interest.
Right.
There are also a lot of new BCom specializations that are available, right? So there is a BCom in, there's a bachelor's in finance and accounting, there's a BCom in computer science, there's a BCom that specializes in international accounting, courses like that, right? So the choice available to students is huge nowadays.
Right.
So it's not just, you opt for a 3-year degree, you're just doing a regular BCom. No, you can actually specialize in a lot of areas.
Right. And so what are the entrance tests for commerce students into colleges? So we all know that science students have entrance exams. So what about commerce students? What are the entrance exams into colleges?
Okay, so it used to be that only professional courses have entrance exams, but nowadays colleges are actually conducting entrance exams for even BCom and BBA. And not just entrance exams, there is a presentation that they have to make, there's a group discussion that they have to undertake. So all these things actually have become a major part of how students are chosen for BCom, right? So what used to happen was between CAs and MBAs, people used to say MBAs are better at presentation, MBAs are good at making PowerPoint slides, things like that, right? But now even CA has made it compulsory. There is a compulsory module in chartered accountancy that requires you to have soft skills training, systems training, all of those things. So it has become very important, not just to be good at your studies, but also have all extra skills.
Right. And so is there a cutoff in terms of marks? So
yeah, typically the marks are for undergraduate degrees, it is about 60% to apply. But let me clarify, this is only to get the application form, right? And the good colleges actually have a cutoff of around 90% to become eligible for admission, right? So, and also the fact that you have to do well in these presentations and the group discussion.
Right. And so, Jyoti ma'am, my next question is to you, because it seems to me that an entrance into commerce postgraduate degrees seems as competitive as science. So I mean, you have such a significant cutoff, and you have all these group discussions and presentations that the students should know how to give. So what is the school's role in preparing a commerce student for these entrance exams?
One way, actually, if we really look at it, one way we're really glad that, there are these sessions where the students have to make presentations, because the fact of the life that we are living in this era remains that communication is an essential skill. So as a school, it becomes really important that, we do place enough emphasis on getting the required marks. But at the same time, there is enough emphasis on the fact that the child needs to be prepared. These skills of presentation, articulation are laid enough emphasis on in the classrooms, which we very strongly believe as a school. And there are a lot of activities which are conducted around to make sure that the students get the exposure and the opportunities to hone their skills.
Right, absolutely. And like Ramya mentioned, the CA now has a communications module which is compulsory.
Yes.
So it is, in a way, it is like the MBA, which has so many, opportunities to showcase your communication skills. CA is also insisting on it. So it is an important skill. So Jyoti ma'am, another question to you I'd like to ask is, so, do you have any practical components in an exam for commerce in 11th and 12th? Do you have actual practicals? Because we know science students have practicals. So, do you have practical exams?
Yes, see, as part of CBSE curriculum itself, practicals and projects are an integral component of the curriculum. So, CBSE does ensure that it takes care of that element, that practicals are not limited just to science. And as a school, what we do is we do place enough importance on these practicals and projects. So children actually get hands-on experience on the field. They go for industry visits. They go to these HR departments in corporates. and they go and see exactly what they are learning. So it makes a lot of difference. They have to work on the project presentations. They also have external examiners, just like science, coming in who take their viva. So they have to really know what they're doing. So it's as important as science, and in no way the commerce stream is in any manner secondary.
That's actually a huge advantage for kids, because knowing what ledgers are, knowing how to track accounting entries in real life, it's a very valuable skill. It will actually add a lot of value to their resume going forward and make their life a lot easier.
Right. I just wish to add, our this year's 12th standard batch, they have actually worked with the accounts department of the school. So they know exactly how it functions. And, there were a lot of good insights that we heard from the students when they were working on this. And our department was also equally impressed. So I think it works both ways well.
Right. And so, Ramya, what are the competitive exams that commerce graduates can look at? So, apart from your MBA, CA, and CS, so what are the other avenues for them?
One avenue where there's a lot of scope going forward would actually be actuarial sciences, right? And data analytics. These are the two areas where we see a lot of scope going forward. So actuarial sciences has been there for many years now. Indian Institute of Actuarial Sciences has been around for many years. But it is an extremely difficult exam to pass. I would say it is as difficult as CA, right? And so actuarial sciences, the actuaries actually work in risk management area, right? So it is not just insurance companies that hire them, banks, financial institutions, a lot of places are looking for actuaries, qualified actuaries. So that would be one area where people can look at booming going forward.
Right. And IAS is another option, right? And
yes, IAS is definitely always there. We always need good administrators. We need youngsters to come forward and take up these roles to run the country, right? Their future. So
yeah, and for insurance companies, they have their own entrance exams. I mean, if you want to join
banks, insurance companies, all these places have their own entrance exams if you want to join at a higher level. Right. So you need to prepare for those entrance exams. The components generally are language, numerical ability, reasoning. All of those areas will be tested in the entrance exams.
Okay. And so, Jyoti ma'am, obviously there are so many components involved in choosing a career, in choosing a path. There are fields like actuarial sciences, which not many students and parents would have heard of. So, how and when do students start identifying these careers in their 11th and 12th?
It's a very pertinent question, because when students join a stream, they have very limited understanding of the scope of the careers that the stream chooses to offer. So as a school, it's very important to have a component in the school program itself that would provide the children as well as the parents a peep into the world of the careers which exist as well as the careers which are emerging. So as a school, we have a program that we have introduced that despite the fact the child has chosen, say, commerce or science, they would go through this extensive hand-holding where they will get these insights. Right. So that's the time, probably over a period of time, by the end of 12th standard, they do have time to kind of decide where they want to get.
Right. And they also know, you also tell them the skills that they need to go into.
Exactly. It gives a sense of direction. Exactly. And the goal is not cast in stone, right, but a sense of direction is very important for the child as well as for the parent.
Absolutely. And ma'am, I'm sure that in 10th, a lot of students and parents meet you for admissions into 11th. So when it comes to the commerce stream, Samhita Academy offers commerce and science. So when it comes to the commerce stream, what are some of the questions, the doubts, and the common misconceptions that parents have?
Interesting question. So what happens, the kind of questions that we have come across, interestingly, is, I don't like math. Do you think I can do commerce? Right? So that is a question which does come from many people, because we also offer a combination without mathematics. Now, the fact is that the mathematics that is offered at CBSE is the same math for commerce as well as science. So students who genuinely do not want to do differentiation, integration, calculus, do not want to do that math. But at the same time, there's no getting away from math. Right? So we do tell them that you may not have an aversion for numbers, because basic requirement would be your basic arithmetic has to be in place. You know, your percentage, your computations, ratio proportion, decimals. These concepts are very important in your accountancy as well as economics.
Right.
So that is one part. So if I'm not good at math, can I take commerce? Yes, you can take commerce provided your basics in math are sound.
Right.
Then secondly, since we have also offered computer science and psychology, so people do ask, you know, I don't want to take math, I'll take psychology, and then what are the options? So again, going into psychology, it is a field which is up for grabs. You know, there is lot and lot that's happening, and there's a great, bright future there. So taking up psychology as a subject improves the chances of, few more careers ahead. That is something that we recommend if they like psychology as a subject. But again, the question is, if I study psychology, can I read minds? No, you can't, because the curriculum does not provide you that scope. However, the curriculum lends itself to you understanding the basic components of human behavior. Right. And another question that comes up is with computer science. I'm not taking science, then how will computer science work for me? So like Ramya mentioned at the beginning that, you know, there are BCom courses which also have a specialization in computer science. So, and being skilled at computer science is always an added advantage. Right.
Yes, especially since all accounting is actually done on computers now. Nobody uses manual ledgers or any of those things anymore. So all accounting is actually done on computers. So knowing computers, being familiar with some programming language is actually a big advantage again.
Right. Just wish to add, actually, probably psychology would be another, as a subject of study, probably would call for another FP Live. But psychology is a major component in any field today.
Absolutely.
Right from hospitality to hospitals, to schools, to corporates, anywhere you go, psychology helps, including digital marketing.
Yes.
So it's always an advantage if you have psychology as a subject.
Right. And you also mentioned that math is something that students feel and worried about. So I think Ramya had mentioned that the CA exam is a very tough exam.
Yes.
So your to qualify for the CA, to apply, you need about 50%.
Yes.
But the actual process of doing the CA is quite tough.
Yes.
So I suppose you need to tell the students that, it is a very rigorous course, and to kind of give them that reality check.
Yes. So a lot of kids actually now think that, okay, let's do CA, because everybody is talking about CA. It's a great course. It's it pays very well. So let me start doing CA, right? But it is just not enough to make that decision. It needs to be followed up with a lot of hard work and lot of discipline, right? Typically, a chartered accountancy course is something like where you would attend classes from 6 to 8 in the morning, then you would go to work from 9 to 5, and again attend classes from 6 to 8 in the evening, and come back home and study for 2 hours, right? So that is your typical day. That's what it's going to be looking like. And the pass percentage is around 5%, right? So for every 100 kids who write the exam, only 5 kids actually end up passing. And then there is also this thing of you have passed in individual papers, but you have lost because of your aggregate, because your total marks needs to be a certain number to be able to pass.
Okay.
And the thing with CA is, if you fail in a paper, you have to repeat all the papers of that group. Right. So it's not an easy joke to crack CA. It is tough, but I think students should go in with the attitude of, okay, the pass percentage is 5%. I understand that. But one of those 5 people is me, right? So that is the attitude that students should take. It should not be that, oh my God, it's so difficult. There's so much of study involved. Hard work is something that you can never get away from.
Right.
Get away from, sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so if a child wants to become a CA, of course, grit and hard work are important. But what are the other specific skills that he or she should display?
Okay, the thing with CA is you need to be able to grasp a lot of information in a short time, right? So you only have around 6 months, 8 months for you to go from maybe ABCD to reading like Shakespeare, right? Once you join the CA course. So you have to grasp a lot of information in a short amount of time, and you should be able to cross-link this information across different areas. It is important to know taxation, it is important to know law, and it is important to apply these two subjects to accounting if you are actually going to make a proper set of accounts, right? So I think that would be the most important skill that students need to pick up. You will not have it when you start 11th, it's obvious, but it's something that you need to pick on as you progress through your courses.
Right. And what are the other, traits that a student should have? This maybe the, in terms of, so I'm sure that integrity is what you had mentioned when I spoke to you earlier.
Yes. So integrity is very, very important, right? It is important in all fields, and in CA especially. Your name is your value, right? If your name gets spoiled, then it's very difficult to recover that back. So integrity, hard work, discipline, these are things that you need to keep in mind and work for over the long period of time.
Right. And Jyoti ma'am, so when a student needs all these skills, they just don't come overnight. It has to be, given by the school. And so what is the school's role here? Because obviously there's so much that they need to work on. So, yeah.
Right. So as a school, it's very important to it has to be part of the school culture.
Right.
Because when we talk about integrity, we talk about, say, perseverance, grit, determination. Now, these are all values and traits which can be cultivated over a period of time. They're not going to come overnight. So as a school, we have a lot of things in place to ensure that students do get opportunities to observe these values, practice these values, and imbibe these values. Right? And again, school as a single entity would not be able to take care of it. So therefore, it's important to be part of a school where the school and the parents, and they work in unison. It's a community. Right. So when we work together, it is not impossible. It is possible. And at the same time, like you mentioned, the child should be able to develop these connections, should be able to make these links, should be able to kind of retain so much of information over a period of time. So when the child comes to grade 11, I just wish to bring this point out here, especially in commerce, other than English as a subject, all the other subjects are new. Right. Economics, some part of economics, the child does have some exposure as part of social science curriculum in grade 9 and 10. However, everything else is new. So it takes some time, sometimes 2 to 3 months for the child to kind of settle down with what is this accountancy all about. Right. Yeah. What is this whole statistics in economics all about? So it takes time. So it's important for the teachers and parents to have that sort of a patience to kind of allow the child to settle and then pick up the rest. Right.
So one thing that I would like to add here is when you're studying science, all of us have studied structure of an atom, proton, neutron, all that stuff, right? But no one has really seen an atom with our eye. But when it comes to commerce, what kids study in their curriculum, things like stock market, exchange rate, interest rate, kids actually see a lot of practical application of these things that they are studying in real life. So it becomes easier to relate to these things and understand these things because they're seeing it happening in real life and practically.
Right. So we had this a very recent experience where the students have learned about the various management principles, and they had this industry visit, and they had the opportunity to interact with people at different levels, and they came back quoting the different management principles. They were able to relate. So that's very interesting. You're right. You can't see an atom, but you study about an atom. But here you learn the management principles. You're going to go observe, experience the management principles. So that's how it's different and interesting.
Absolutely. And so, Ramya, what are the new career trends for that a commerce student can anticipate?
I would say actually look at things like valuation. Like startups are a huge culture in India right now. Right? We have a lot of startups taking off. So valuation is something that there's going to be a lot of scope for going forward. Risk management is the other thing that I would say, right? So when I say risk management, analytics also forms a part of risk management. roles like fraud and risk analytics, which was not there 5 years ago, and is actually taking off now in a big way. Right. So data analytics related to finance is something that we can expect a lot of work and scope going forward.
And what you mentioned valuation. So can you tell us what it is? What valuation is?
So valuation is actually trying to figure out the value of a startup, right? Let's say there is a running company that has this number in sales and this many clients and this many projects. It's easy to actually kind of figure out how valuable the company is. But in a startup, right, when you're starting off and you're trying to build a new business from scratch, it's impossible to kind of put numbers to these figures, right? So it's both an art and science. You need to know the business, you need to know the culture in which the company is operating, as well as look at the hard numbers.
Right.
So that would be that would be an area where there's a lot of value that a commerce student can bring in.
Right. And you mentioned data analytics. So can a non-science background student take it? I mean, is it possible?
It is possible. Generally, it is only engineers who end up doing data analytics. But now, like I said, risk and fraud analytics it's taking off, right? So they need a lot of people with finance background, right? And a lot of these information security auditors are actually chartered accountants, right? So because corporations need to protect their information, we have unethical hackers trying to hack into the system every day. Right. So information security is really huge. Information security auditors tend to be accountants and auditors who have experience in trying to look at the different areas, analyze the system, identify loopholes, those kind of things. So that would be also one area where there's a lot of scope.
Right, and of course, I think now digital marketing is a huge boom.
Yes.
There's a lot of everyone needs a digital marketer.
Yes,
and I think psychology is also plays an important role in digital marketing, because you have to understand whom you're selling to, and you have to also understand marketing.
That's right.
Yeah. So this is a question that many parents ask me. So I'll ask both Ramya and Jyoti ma'am. So what works out better for a commerce student? Is it the CBSE or is it the PUC?
Okay. So you answer?
Sure. Basically, if you look at the content of the curriculum, there's not much of a difference.
Right.
But the differentiating factor, one of the very important differentiating factor would be that CBSE, you do not have to learn an additional second language.
Right.
So that takes off the load of one subject. That's very important.
Yeah.
And also, I think CBSE has a lot more practicals, like you were talking about earlier, and projects, right? So that gives a lot of practical exposure, I think. PU is more focused on the theory part. So I think syllabus-wise, it's the same, right? So both of them follow PU, and CBSE only follow NCERT syllabus now in Karnataka. But the type of questions that get asked, definitely there's a huge difference.
The CBSE is very clear on the blueprint. There is enough emphasis and importance laid to application-based questions. So when the testing is application-oriented, there is no other way that the course curriculum could be but experiential.
Yes.
Absolutely. Yeah, and you also have the practicals in CBSE.
Yes.
Absolutely. Yes. Yeah. And so another question that a lot of parents and students ask, I'm not a numbers person. Can I still take up commerce and accountancy? And is it important to be good in maths to be a commerce student?
Yeah, like Ms. Jyoti was mentioning earlier, I'm not good at math. Can I do finance and accounting, commerce? Yes, you can do. And you have one option is to take up other non-math electives in your 11th and 12th. But my suggestion to students would actually be not develop that kind of a mindset, right? Commerce and accounting, end of the day, is all about numbers. It's all about how you use numbers to make sense of the data, right? So till you may find it difficult in 11th and 12th, right? Because your calculation is difficult, you're not allowed a calculator. But once you get to the professional courses, you're actually allowed to use a calculator. So to that extent, your life becomes simpler. You are allowed to use a calculator. So calculation difficulties come down.
Right.
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 And so that is one aspect of it. So like I was saying, it's the mindset that needs to change. You need to develop a mindset of actually being comfortable with numbers. So what we suggest to kids who want to take up maths in 11th and 12th but are not good at it is work on your holidays. After your 10th standard exam, when you have holidays, work on your basic math. Take your 7th standard, 8th standard maths textbook. There is no shame in absolutely going back and learning the basics. Absolutely no shame, right? So you go back and you work on those basics, and you will find it much easier when you get to 11th standard. Right. So that is the thing.
Your inputs remind me of something because I was going through the answer papers the day before, and one, of course, the mindset that that I'm not averse to numbers and I can do it, and the basic math being in place. We also feel that eye for detail is is a trait, a skill that needs to be cultivated. If you are for any field, it's an advantage, but especially if you're doing accountancy, economics, it is definitely required. Because going through the answer papers, the child has faltered at one step and gone into a figure which is negative, and not realized that it is not that step the child has gone wrong. Right?
Yeah.
So eye for detail is very important.
Yes, absolutely.
It can be cultivated over a period of time with enough support and supervision by the teachers.
Yes.
Can be done.
And another question is, so if a student wants to do an MBA and he or she is not from a commerce, from a science background, so is that a disadvantage or is that a misconception?
Yeah, I would say it's a misconception. There is absolutely no requirement for a student to be an engineer or from a science background to be able to be accepted into the IIMs. In fact, the IIMs actually have a diversity factor where you are actually given an additional 2 points if you are not from an engineering background. So they need people from different backgrounds to actually keep the batch diverse. So that is something that, of course, if you're going to go into something very specific like petroleum management or something like that, then you would actually need experience in that particular field.
Right. Right.
But other than that, there is no requirement that you have to be from a science background.
Right. And another question that we get asked often is, so can I do a PU and prepare for the CA exam simultaneously?
Okay, so like I was mentioning earlier, when you're starting 11th, you're in PU1, PU2 or CBSE 11th or 12th, you are just learning the ABCs, right? Now, CA is like Shakespeare. Right. When you're in 11th and 12th, you have no idea of the complexity of the subjects that you're going to face. So my suggestion would actually be build on your basics. Build on your basics. That's very, very important. Many kids go into BCom not knowing what debit is, what credit is, what should be debited or what should be credited. Right. This is something that kids have to learn in 11th and 12th and be very clear about by the time they get to BCom. Right. So that is something that we would say, please focus on building your basics now rather than looking at CA portions.
Right.
Take a piece of paper, sit and work your accounts, right? Accounting is not a theory subject. You have to sit and work it. That is the best way to learn it. So please focus on building your basics rather than thinking about CA. Having a long-term goal is good, but build your basics first.
In fact, we do come across this very often. The children are like, I want to prepare for CA. I have to, invest so much of time on that. And teachers are very insistent. Yes, you will do your CA, but your foundation is very important. So this is something we have to practice. There is no other way, right? And of course, giving them the rationale as to why.
Right. Right. And so, are there any coaching centers for CAs, and how does a parent or student evaluate them when choosing?
There are a lot of coaching centers, right? Every other street has a coaching center for CSE, WCS now, right? So it is important to actually look at these centers, but reality is that we have no way of evaluating them objectively. The most obvious metric would be the number of students who have passed, but it could be one group, it could be a combination of groups, it could be one paper, it could be like many papers. We don't know. We don't know, right? We just cannot base it on the number of students who are passing, right? The other opportunity would actually be to look at professors who are good at that particular subject. Because in a coaching center, what might happen is you might have a very good teacher for accounting, but the law teacher might not be so good, right? You don't know, right? And so what I would suggest is look at professors now. Everybody conducts sessions online. There is Facebook Live, digital media, right? So there's a lot of opportunity. You can choose the best professor from Delhi, sit in your room and actually attend that lecture. Right. So that would be a better choice than trying to go in for a particular tuition center or a coaching center.
Right, yeah. And do you need to be a graduate to do a CA? Because a lot of students, it's related to the previous question, but a lot of students think, I have finished my 12th, why don't I train to be a CA right now?
It is possible to do CA after your 12th, at least start getting into the course after your 12th. There is a way, it's called foundation, right? In all the three, CA, CS and CMA, all three of them have a foundation course that you can take and get into this courses without having to do a graduation. But then the suggestion that we give students is please complete your degree, right, and then take up these courses, because one, it gives you more time to evaluate whether that's something that you would like to undertake, because it's an extremely intensive course.
Right.
It's not an easy thing to do. So we suggest finish your BCom first. That will give you more time and also build your basics in a stronger way that enables you to take up CA later on.
Right.
But if you are really good academically, if you are able to grasp the basics of business and accounting in 11th and 12th, then fantastic. Go for it after your 12th.
Right.
The overall difference, assuming that you pass everything in your first attempt. After your 12th, if you do it, you'll finish your CA in 5 years.
Right.
After your BCom, you will finish it in 3 years. So
right.
Overall, it is 3 plus 3 if you do it through the graduation route, and 5 years if you do it after 12th.
Right.
So you actually only save a year. If you look at the overall amount of time taken,
right,
you only save a year. So it would actually be better for you to do BCom and then go in for CA.
Right, and you also have a fallback.
Yes, absolutely.
Graduation.
Absolutely, yes.
So we are nearing the end of our Facebook Live session. We will be taking questions now, and please do post your questions. Anything that you would like to know about, the commerce stream. So I have a question here from Sargam Nair. Can a commerce student give NDA entrance exam?
No.
No.
You need to have a science background to apply for NDA.
Okay. What is the NDA?
National Defense
Academy. Okay.
It has papers on physics, chemistry, and mathematics.
Right. Yeah. And so another friend has WhatsApp me asking, can a student with a psychology, who has studied psychology in yes. So I think the option here is not to do psychology via science. So in Samhita, you can do it with commerce. So she wants to know, can they take up, can they become psychologists, with that course alone, without having done science?
They can, because they will go and pursue their graduation and post-graduation in psychology, then go for an MPhil.
Okay. Yeah.
And then do a doctorate.
Right. Yeah. So please do ask any more questions that you may want to. It's a good opportunity to find out what you would like to know about the commerce stream.
Just wish to add something here. The trend that we see currently is that I meet a lot of students for admissions, and of course our existing students who are moving into commerce. Commerce is no longer a second choice.
Right.
There are students who have had brilliant academic records, and they're very sure that they want to pursue commerce.
Right.
And going ahead with enough information, enough knowledge and awareness about where commerce stream can take you and make it your first preference if you choose to, can be a big advantage compared to choosing it as a second option.
Right.
Yes. Yeah. So if you are actually even a science graduate, you can still do CA. Nothing stops you. There's nothing that's stopping you. But the advantage that you have of having studied accounting from 11th and 12th
Right.
and then doing CA is something different than having tried for engineering, not gotten what you want, then you change your line and say, okay, I'm going to do CA. Right? You have actually lost out on the basics, which is very, very important in this field.
Right, right. And there's another question that someone has asked me on WhatsApp. So, so if you finish the CA course, can you automatically go into company secretaryship or CME? So
You cannot. They are totally different courses.
Right.
So you would need to register for each of these courses separately and take them.
Right.
However, between CMA and CS, there is some kind of a tie-up where if you have completed your CS, then you get exemption from certain papers in CMA, and the other way around. If you've completed your CMA, you get exemptions from for certain papers in CS.
Okay.
But with CA, there is no exemption, nothing. You have to take up all the papers, pass all the groups.
Right. And someone has asked, can you tell us more about the law, exams? So CLAT is the one that we are very familiar with, but I didn't know that there were other exams that you had to take for law.
Yes. So the three main exams are actually CLAT, AILET, and LSAT. Right? National Law University Delhi has its own entrance exam. Other national law universities actually have accept CLAT, and a lot of other schools accept LSAT. So it is a kid who's trying for law has to necessarily take up all these three exams.
Right.
So then even if you mess up in one, then you have an option of doing well in another exam. So,
right. Right. Yeah. And so I think Sadam Nair, who asked us about the NDA, so he said we were told that a commerce student can give an NDA getting into an army. So no, not possible. Okay. Can you? So I think we are still getting a few more questions. So can you tell us a little bit more about digital marketing, because we just touched upon it very briefly in our session. But is there a scope? What's the scope for it now?
Yes, so that is one field where there's a huge shortage of people, right? And a lot of people are actually, the role itself has changed. Marketing used to be more of a creative job. Now it is more of a data-based job, right? So you have specific data, you have specific leads on how people are behaving, what they are doing, which companies are using to make targeted advertisements, right? So which is why if you go and look for a holiday in Bali on Google, right? Immediately when you go to some other website, when you're browsing the next day, you see these ads, discount for Bali, right? So, or this other thing where I would say it's very difficult for me is I go to Myntra or Flipkart and add something on the cart and leave it. And then I'm just tempted the rest of the day, like buy this, you left it in your cart, right? So all that would actually be part of digital marketing. A lot of psychology is involved, a lot of data analysis is involved, and a lot of economics is involved, right? So it's a combination of all three subjects.
Right, absolutely. And I suppose even something like e-commerce is such a huge field now.
Yes.
So so you have something as specific as you have software that something I read called cart abandonment software. So to make sure that you don't you'll somehow purchase what you're going to purchase. So you have such technical terms and so that's another field.
Absolutely. E-commerce is definitely a field. So again, the accounting for all these things has changed, right? It is the kind of businesses that are getting done nowadays.
Right.
It's something new, right? So it's like the wild west, right?
Yeah.
So everybody is learning, everybody is figuring things out, right? So a friend of mine was actually asking, what is analytics, right? We've always been doing analysis of figures, right? Why has this become so huge now, right? What is the difference between analysis and analytics?
Right.
So analysis is actually something, I would say, looking at a set of figures and figuring out what went wrong in the past.
Right.
So that is what analysis is all about. Analytics would be to use the same set of figures and figure out what the person is going to do in the future. right? So which is why you have banks and financial institutions using analytics to target you, right? If you're looking for, let's say, a car, and then you get bombarded with ads for car loans, right? Credit card people, they call you, do you need a new credit card? Do you want to, and this is all very targeted. It's not like they're randomly calling you, right? So they have identified what kind of money you have been spending, what kind of things you've been buying, and their advertisement is very targeted. So that is what analytics is all about.
And ma'am, so in terms of the scope for commerce students is so vast. So do students talk to you about these new trends? Do they discuss these things? Are they excited about them? And what do you tell them when they do that?
See, as educators, I'm sure all the educators out there watching the FB Live would agree that there's a huge responsibility on the schools. We have to prepare the children for existing careers, emerging careers, and careers that are totally unknown to us. Another 5 years, we don't even know what's coming. So students do have these discussions in the classroom with the teachers, and I feel very proud to say that many times students know much more, and we are the ones who are learning from them. It gives us an insight into what's coming, and then how do we prepare ourselves to meet the requirements. They do, and it's very interesting. And some of it, what I learned from you, I would definitely want to have a discussion with the kids sometime later.
Right, absolutely. And please do send in more questions. We'll be taking a few more. I'd like to ask a little bit more about some of the projects that you do in school. So, CBSE has a practical component, obviously. And so what are some of the hands-on activities, field trips that students in the commerce stream typically do at the Samhita Academy?
Like I mentioned, of course, they work with our own accounts department. They went for an industrial visit to see what the management styles are like. Then they did project on GST and demonetization, which is of absolute relevance. They are discussing topics like, foreign exchange fluctuation. So these are very relevant and pertinent topics which requires the students to keep themselves abreast of what's happening, as well as see how do they link and correlate it to the other things that they're learning. Psychology, for example, grade 12, the project is about creating a case profile of an individual with a mental health concern, which is a disorder. And the interesting components are in interviewing the individual, creating a profile, using standard diagnostic tools, and planning and treatment schedule, following the ethics of research and counseling. So this kind of gives them a hands-on experience of what would a psychologist be doing, and at the same time maintaining the confidentiality clause.
That's very important. And ethics comes in there.
And
that's where integrity gets interlinked. These are various opportunities and windows where we can bring in these elements.
So it's actually really nice that your students are being exposed to these things while they are in 11th and 12th itself. It gives them a very practical idea of what the job is going to entail, right? So that, I think, is a huge advantage for these kids, that they're doing all these things in school itself.
We consider ourselves really privileged to be able to do this, and with a bright lot of teachers and students, we are very sure that we will make a difference.
Absolutely. And so I'll just ask a final question before we wrap it up. So because the Samhita Academy also offers computers. So that is a very interesting element, because you were talking about analytics. So computers play a huge role in analytics. You are looking at predictive analysis of who's going to be accessing information, smartphone user profiles. So it's very interesting that you can combine computer science and psychology as well. So it's quite an interesting combination. And the last question I would like to ask you, Ramya, is what is the scope of computer science in the commerce stream?
Well, I would say it's very, very important, right? Like I was mentioning earlier, all accounting is now done on software. And it is not just your local software. These are like huge ERP systems that kind of link your production plan with your finance, with your sales, right? So everything goes through the same system, right? So So it is very, very important for students to be familiar with computer science, and like I said, know a programming language if possible, right? It's very important. And the thing with accounting is, if you pass an entry in your basic books of accounts, it gets tracked all the way till the balance sheet, right? The system does it. But then what entry to pass, that is something that student has to know, right? The employee, when you grow up and become an employee, that is something that you have to know. That's where the human element comes in. So while there is a lot of systematic and it's systemized and the computerized systems that handle accounting and all of these things, we cannot do away with accounting, the human element for accounting. So I would say accounting is one of those careers which you'll never find going out of style, or your demand for an accountant going down.
Absolutely. So we'll wrap up our session here. And for any of you who have questions, please do ask more. I mean, we will leave answers to them as and when you ask them. And I'd like to thank Ms. Ramya and Ms. Jyoti for a wonderful session. It was really very informative to hear about the scope of the commerce stream. It is really very, very exciting. So thank you so much.
Thank you for that.
Thank you so much. And from the Samhita Academy, all the best to all the students, 10th standard, who are going to appear for your boards. Best wishes for making a right choice, a well-informed decision, and best wishes to the parents for supporting their students. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you.